Hey YouTube, hope you guys are doing well. I'm out in the shop right now. It's early Sunday morning. It's raining outside, so I'm not messing around out there. Especially it's so cold. It was 70 degrees yesterday, and it's like 30 degrees this morning, and I think the high's like 40 something. I don't know. I'm ready for winter to be over. Needless to say, I'm ready for spring and I'm ready for summer. But I'm out at my shop, so sharpening my chainsaws. I figured it'd be a good opportunity to kind of show you guys the basics of it. I'm not gonna get real in detail. You can go just like anything. You can go way in depth with stuff, a lot of information you don't really need to know. Mainly, I'm gonna be going over the basics, like what chain you have, the file that you need for that chain, and how I sharpen my chainsaws. Let's get into it. I'll kind of explain some stuff. So first things first, you're gonna need to know a little bit of information about your chain. Most chainsaw bars that I've ever seen has the length of the bar, which this one's 20 inches. It has the gauge of the bar, which is 50 thousandths, and it has the pitch. And that's the information you need to know for the file size, right? So this chainsaw is a 0.325 inch pitch. Okay, for that, you're gonna need a 3/16. I don't know if you can see that. If you can't, just trust me. This is a 3/16 file. You're gonna need the right size file because see how that fits nicely down in there? That's why you need to know that information. For this chainsaw right here, and this is a low profile chain. This is a 3/8 chain, but it's 3/8 low profile. It says it right there. I don't know if you can see that either because it's kind of faded, but it's 3/8 LP. All right. So for 3/8 low profile, this is the file you need. This is a 5/32 file. Not sure if you can see that either, but trust me, it's 5/32. See how that fits in there nicely? Now I want to show you something. This is a 3/8 chain, right? So you go over here. This is a 3/8 chain as well, but look how much bigger the file is for this. Okay, this file is 7/32. It's 3/8, and that's 3/8. Look how much bigger that sucker is. Look how much bigger. What I'm trying to get across is this is a low profile 3/8 chain, and this is not. You can see this is a massive chain, a lot bigger. I put my chainsaws in a vise usually when I sharpen them. I have a little log vise right here. You actually beat this into the log and you can clamp your bar down on that. I don't really use it that much because if I'm on a tree job, I have like 6 chainsaws, okay? If I'm on a tree job and a chain breaks or something like that, or it gets really dull, I'm either taking that chain off and putting a new one on, or I'm just grabbing another chainsaw. I don't want to be out sharpening and wasting a bunch of time when I could just do it all right here on the vise. And it's, you know, more efficient for me, I guess. But so I always put my chainsaws in a vise, or I clamp the bar in a vise. There's the chainsaw in the vise. I want to stress to you, you don't need it really tight. You just need it snug enough to hold the chainsaw from flipping off or moving around while you're, you know, doing your sharpening or whatever it is. You just don't want to tighten it so much you bend or distort your bar. That would not be good because those are not cheap and it would be unnecessary to do so. I usually sharpen my chains about every 1 to 2 tanks of gas. I find it better to just keep them. If you keep your chain sharp, you got to think about it like this. Keep your chain sharp, right? It's sharp. You're not putting the extra wear on your sprocket. You're not putting the extra wear and tear on your chainsaw. You're cutting more efficient. You're not wasting fuel by bogging your saw, by cutting with a dull chain. It's just better to keep sharp. And that being said, if you keep your chain sharp, you don't lose this angle right here. See, on my chain, some of my chains don't have that, but most of my chains do. They have a little line right there. Can you guys see that? I hope you can see that. There's a line right there. And what that line does is shows you what angle to hold your file. If you don't have that, normally I'm thinking it's 25 to 30 degrees is the angle you want to be sharpening your chain at, right? If you don't have that little guide right there, you can get a piece of wood, or you can get your angle on, like if you're using a vise, for example, you can get your angle and just draw it on your vise. So you can always get this thing sharpened at the right angle. You want to keep all your teeth at the right angle, okay? And you want to keep all your teeth, let's just say that I'm sharpening this tooth right here, and it takes me 10 times to go past it, just to get, like, let's say there's a nick in it or something. I normally go between 6 and 10 files, or whatever you want to call it, 6 and 10. I'm losing my mind here. I can't think of the word, but I normally make, there we go, passes. I'll make about 8 passes, 6 to 10 passes, whatever. If I go, let's say 8 on this one, I'm going to go 8 on the rest of them. And the reason for that being, the reason for that is you want to sharpen all of your cutters about the same amount, because it takes material off each pass you do, and you want to take about the same material off per pass, just to keep everything. Because, like, let's say you sharpen this one 20 times, and then you sharpen this one 10 times, and sharpen this one, and they're all out of whack. Well, when you start cutting, if they're not evenly sharpened, you're going to be cutting like this, or cutting over here, or it's just going to be, you're going to be pulling, is what I'm trying to get at. And another thing, that 25 to 30 degrees I mentioned, I always just go by this line. Okay, whatever this line is what I go by, because that's what the manufacturer recommends. If you sharpen it steeper than that, yeah, you're going to be cutting a lot faster, but with cutting faster, you're going to be, your chain's going to dull faster too. So you're going to be cutting faster, but your chain's going to be dulling faster. The more blunt you cut it, the slower it's going to cut, but the longer it's going to stay sharp. I mean, there's probably some extreme, like if you went 100% that way, you're probably not be cutting anything that's not going to be sharp at all. But I don't know. I've never done that. I go by the line here. And another thing, as you sharpen this, like this looks like a pretty new chain. I don't think it's been on here long, but these right here in front that I'm pointing at, this is called a guide tooth. What that does is it limits the amount of material your chain can take off, right? So if you took this all the way down, your chainsaw is probably gonna be bogging up unless you have some big monster chainsaw, You only want to be taking off a little bit at a time. Let me kind of explain what's going on here. When you sharpen this tooth, it's gonna get lower and lower, right? And eventually, you're gonna need to file a little off of this guide tooth, because this is gonna be lower than the guide tooth. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense for you. And for that, you just use, I have some files back here. You just use a flat file, and you just kind of go over it a little bit. They make gauges. I have these gauges. They've been hanging here for 10 years. I've never used them. I got that in the wrong spot. Sorry. Those gauges are good if you don't really have a feel for how this is. I always have a feel, and when you're sharpening your saws, you're not taking a tremendous amount off of the cutter. You're just taking a little bit. And if I notice that it's not taking off the amount of wood it should or whatever, I'll go through and just file a little bit off each one of these to keep it cutting right. I just have a feel for it. I've never used the gauge. I just do it by feel, kind of. And you'll get to that point. The more wood you cut, you'll get to that point as well. But I hope I covered all the basics of what I was trying to get across. Let's get these chainsaws sharpened right quick. All right, I want to mention this too. Your file, let's see if you can see that. You see how the file is kind of, I'm going to call it fluted. I don't know if it's fluted, but in the file itself is kind of all the way, like in a circular spiraled pattern down. When you put your file in this tooth, you hold it at the angle like we previously talked about, and you want to just run it straight across. Let me move the camera back because I don't want to pile you guys over and tear my camera up. You want to run this thing straight across at the angle, and you probably want to wear gloves and stuff like that. My hands are legitimately like leather, okay. I work a lot with a lot of rough materials. My hands are hard as leather, so you probably want to wear gloves if you don't want to have a bunch of ripped up skin. But anyways, I just hold my file like that, You don't want to twist it or anything. You want to hold it perfectly level and run it straight across. You don't want to push down on it. You don't want to pull up on it or none of that stuff. You just want to run straight across like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you can see there's a little bit of material sort of lifting up right there on your chain. Man, you guys can't see this. It's not focusing. It's not that big of a deal. You'll see it in person when you do this. But don't worry about that. It's just, like I said, when you're filing this material off, this top's going to get a little bit thinner and it's going to flake off. Don't worry. I won't worry about removing it or none of that stuff. That just means see how nice and pretty, how shiny that is. That's where the file went across there. Okay. I wouldn't worry about any of that frayed metal coming off, because you know what? You're about to throw that thing in a log at 3,000 RPM and it's going to rip all those little shards of metal off and you're going to be cutting. That tooth is really, all these teeth are really sharp. I went ahead and went over this side because I was going to get to another point. So we just did the teeth facing this way, right? So we had these teeth to the back of it. I actually take the chainsaw and just turn it around. I don't know if people usually do that. That's just what I've found works for me. So let me show you that right quick. I did one better for you. I actually mounted you to the chainsaw, and I usually turn it the other way, but I turn it this way so that you guys can kind of see what's going on here. I always grab my, yeah, I've already sharpened this one right here, okay? I just went over it a couple more times, but I'll just grab the next chain I'm gonna sharpen. It's not gonna dull it or anything. Slide it toward you, just like that. Maybe that's a little bit too far. There's a camera in the way, so don't judge me if I'm not doing everything exactly right. I'm trying to get it where you guys can see. There's our angle. Got it held at the angle here. I'm just gonna run it across. 1, 2, 3. There we go. That one's good and sharp. We'll just do that all the way around. And another thing, I'm glad I noticed this too. If you start seeing your if you start seeing your file get a bunch of metal shavings in it, this is not because I just cleaned it, but the more you go past, you'll see a bunch of shavings get stuck to it. I always just get like a, well, don't use that, that's oily and nasty. I always get a cloth, like a rag or an old t-shirt or something like that, and you just run it through. I'll use my shirt for this example right here. Kind of just do that and clean all the shavings and stuff out of it. And I just do that because it seems to me like if this file gets gummed up with stuff, it's not falling off as much material as it should be, and it just seems to work better that way. So anyways, we just did that one. Did this one right here. Bring it back one. So this saw is good and sharp now. If you saw me going over it more than 10 times or 6 or 10, whatever I said, sometimes all trees grow and they have rocks or some rusted nail or something like that in it. And a couple of these teeth, I can tell I've hit something, okay? Because when you start pushing your file in, if it doesn't go in smooth, it'll kind of grab and jerk along and all that type of stuff. And a couple of those teeth did that. There's probably a rock or something in it. It's completely normal. As long as you're only, you know, a couple of files through extra on a tooth or something like that, not that big of a deal. I was just stressing earlier, you don't want to do this one 30 times, this one 10, because then you're going to have a massive difference on that chain. If it's only a couple, not that big of a deal. I hope this all made sense. I'm going to go ahead and file my other saws. I'll do those kind of faster so you can kind of get an idea of how I'm doing it. And I want to tell you too, the first couple of chains you do, or the first chain you go to file, you know, if you've never done it before, you probably will ruin it. You'll probably mess it up. This is something that just takes practice. There's like a slight technique to it. You'll figure it out. Don't worry. Don't get frustrated if you mess up a couple times. That's part of learning stuff. I mess stuff up all the time, but you know what? I learned something from it. Let's get these other saws sharpened right quick. So it generally takes me 20 minutes or so to sharpen these 3 saws. This is with a 28-inch bar, a 16-inch bar, and a 20-inch bar. So you can definitely get pretty fast at it. It's not too hard to master, and it's something good to know. You learn a little bit about your saw and learn a little bit about how it works and all that type of stuff. And it's definitely cheaper than taking it somewhere and getting it sharpened. I've never done that, but with this, all you need is a file, and files last a really long time. So, and I don't use a grinder. I've had people ask me why I don't use grinders and stuff like that. I think that a file is better for something like this because it takes off less material. I mean, if you have a really high-end expensive grinder, I could see maybe using that, but like a cheaper grinder, I don't know. It's just the adjustments aren't fine enough, and you end up taking too much material off, which in the end wastes chain, or you end up, the grinder is spinning at a higher RPM than what you'd be doing with a file, and it generates heat and alters the metal properties. I use a file. A lot of big companies use, but I mean, they have multiple crews and all that. With me, it's just me and another person. So that being said, I use a file. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys learned something from it. Oh yeah, I wanted to mention too, you probably saw that I had an easier time with these 2 saws than I did with this one. The reason for that is, this is a climbing saw. I'm not cutting anything big. I'm only cutting limbs with this. This is my limbing saw. I generally don't cut anything over, 16 inches or so. If I cut anything big, I'm going with this one. This is what I use for stumps. There's a lot of rocks and metal and nails and all kinds of crazy stuff. I've even seen the handle of a revolver growing out of a tree before. So if you hit something like that with your saw, it's going to be a bad day for your chain anyways. But this one I cut stumps with, like I said, rocks and all that type of stuff. So it always takes me a little bit longer to sharpen that one, not only because it's bigger, obviously, but because the teeth are generally in worse shape because I don't cut only clean wood with this one. I hope you guys got something from this. I hope you learned something. If you didn't, or if you have any questions, just comment. I'll respond with the answer to the best of my knowledge. Thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't. I'll see you in the next one.